Hello and welcome to this week's episode of It's All Gone South. We're doing a mini review show of the first five games of the National League South so far. I'm joined by Darren and I'm joined by Harry, of course, as we all say every week, reviews of us as individuals, not our employers. Right, thank you both for joining me. Let's just go straight into it, shall we? I mean, our prediction video did really well, and as we're going to talk about, some of those predictions already, unfortunately for a few teams, are coming a little bit true. So
Mm.
I'll tell you what we'll start with though. Darren, thanks for joining us. We're going to look at the players so far between us, the players that really sort of stood out for you. I don't know where you want to start, but just take us away, Darren.
Yeah. There's been a hell of a lot of interesting results so far, hasn't there? Like you said, our predictions have been, hit and miss a little bit. But there's some real key players, I think, so far this season. One player really impressed me was is that I've seen is Josh Hedges at Salisbury. I mean, I know his two goals have been set pieces, but he really controls that tempo in the middle with Owen Dorr, and they've been very very good. I think their left back there from Gosport Reguet as well. Salisbury have had a pretty good introduction into the league, and yeah, one player that's really stood out is Hedges, Cabia as well from Truro. Predicted Truro to obviously struggle. However,
Mm.
since then they've brought in so many good players. Sonogo, Cabia, El Nayes returned to the club. And that Jazzy Cabia, his hat trick on Monday, and that 5-0 win over Worthing was yeah, pretty impressive. They look very strong at the moment, don't they? And another player and a couple of goalkeepers as well. I think it's always good to talk about the attackers, but
Yeah,
goalkeepers
definitely.
as well.
Totally with you.
I think we spoke about it before. I know Harry mentioned Stewart at Tonbridge on
Mm.
loan from Portsmouth. He's been brilliant for Tonbridge so far. And Ted Curd on loan from Chelsea at Hampton. Both loanees coming from the upper leagues of the pyramid. But yeah, he's been very impressive for Hampton at the moment as well.
Nice one, nice work. If we've got any more players, Harry, to add on to that, or we kind of.
Slavi Sparsov, who's a
Mm.
striker at Slough. I think he had a bit of an injury hit campaign last year. When you look at, he only scored a few goals, was on the books at Oxford United for a while. He's one of those players which you thought, well, playing Football Manager, he was kind of one of those players going, oh, I might try and loan him to my
Yeah.
National League South save and try and pick him up. So he's been scoring the goals. Nathan Minas as well at Chesham. Now, you look at Chesham start of the season, I don't think their points tally goes to anything of their performances, which we
Right.
know so well from Monday.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
talking
agree.
to
Yeah.
guys at the club, the start they've had the season. But Nathan Minas, 4 goals for a team sitting 19th in the table as we're recording this with 4 goals. He was an absolute handful. Speaking to Paul Watton after the game on Monday, he was going, yeah, Minas is a player who he causes issues wherever you go.
You don't want to
Um,
mark him, do you? You just
no,
don't. Like you say, he's a right handful. So strong.
yeah, and in that final third, you could stick him as the lone striker, and you think you've got two strikers up there the way he plays. He's very good on the ball. He's also very good at putting pressure on the defenders, winning the headers as well. So he's had a press start with those 4 goals as well. So they're two of the players who I really looked for. And then looking towards the goalkeepers, I think we spoke about Maidstone United losing Lucas Covolan, who since we last recorded has joined Braintree in the National League. They brought in Alexis Andre Jr. He's already kept 3 clean sheets in the opening 5 games of this season. Okay, Maidstone may have not had exactly the start they wanted, but they've not conceded. They've only conceded 3 goals so far this season. They just need to get goals into
It's
their game to
scoring,
push up
isn't
the
it?
table.
Yeah,
Mm.
they haven't scored in their last 3 games. They've got a lot of ability up front. You'd think they'd score more, but I don't still worry for Maidstone. I think do I still think they'll win the league after my prediction? I'm not too sure. But like you said just now, you can't tell anything. After 10 games last season, Taunton were top of the league. They got relegated. So,
Yeah.
it's still a long way to go.
Some really solid starts. When Churro, it was you
Mm.
looked at the manager that they brought in. The feel good factor then going back to their stadium. I mean, with the players they brought in after recorded, could they actually, be around playoffs, Harry, do you reckon? Could they actually fourth place? Is that a realistic thing, maybe?
I think there's a little bit of that's. It's only 5 games into the
Yeah.
season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So there is that. To be perfectly honest, if I've learned anything from the first 5 games of the season, I know nothing. Um, I said that Truro would struggle on their troubles, and I think they beat Maidstone away. They've only lost 1 game so far this season, so they've had a fantastic start of the season. I think a little bit as well is. Especially when you've got 2 games in such quick succession, do you really want to be going to Truro away on that bank holiday Monday?
Mm.
I don't think you would want to. I think you want to either play them on the Saturday or play them at home. So they've had a very impressive start, and as I said, that 5-0 win over Worthing, the red card may have had something to do with that as well. But they've had an electric start to the season. Hemel Hempstead is another one you've got to look at as well. Unbeaten start to the season after, again, they had a solid start last season, but then they fell away and nearly ended up being in that dogfight on the final day of the season to try and stay up. So again, you look at it as it's only 5 games in. Some teams make great starts. There's still a long way to go, and no one is the finished article just yet.
I mean, Slough, let's talk about Slough Town, you know,
Mm.
I mean, well, aren't they,
Fantastic.
Darren? What do you make of their start?
Yeah, I mean they've carried on as they finished last year, didn't they? Had a very strong end, albeit fell away a little bit at the end towards the playoff push. But yeah, Scott Davis has recruited again. He just brings in these players from the lower leagues, and they just click. Luca and Gilbert. I mean, even himself got himself a goal, didn't he? At last
Good free
weekend.
kick.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. The amount of goals they've scored already. I know that they had that big 6-1 win away at Enfield, didn't they? But top scorers of the league, top of the league. Happy days, isn't it, for Slough? And they're playing some really good stuff as well.
Was it hard to see Torquay games? How are you seen Torquay and Chesham for your commentary roles? Talk to some of the games you've seen, Darren. Obviously, you saw Boreham Wood, didn't you? Very impressed by them, weren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, watched the opening day and their win against Bath.
Yeah.
Albeit, like to just say before talking about Boreham Wood, Bath so depleted, but they put on a big effort. And I think that
Same
can't.
against Torquay, yeah.
Yeah, and his defenders are people like Green Slade. I mean, Parcell was missing on the first day as well. They're slowly coming back, and then he lost the injury to Zach Smith early as well. But Boreham
Mm.
Wood, I mean, yes, they had a massive surprise on Monday for losing to Salisbury, especially being ahead. But they look so strong, and you can so tell they're a full-time outfit. The attacking players, I mean, Sousa and people, I mean, and Love is just massive, and then they've got
Tyrone Marsh.
that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tyrone Marsh as well.
Yeah, you Marsh, and then you got Dixon on loan from Birmingham. We've got a
Yeah.
couple of goals, and there's talent everywhere. And I'm very impressed with Whelan. They've got in the middle of the field as well. He was very impressive. And obviously, I was there on Monday to see your boys get that last minute winner at Chesham, which was a fantastic game. I felt
Yeah.
really sorry for Chesham at the end of that.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you enjoyed it. It was from a Torquay point of view. I mean, we were just few too many changes, maybe. I mean, we're a totally different outfit, but you've got the result. I mean, as you say, I can see what's like we said about Cheshire. They really worked hard and yeah, just that handball. I mean, what a game though, and Brad Ashton's instinctive finish. I mean, we talk about Torquay plenty, obviously, on the other goals I view. But as an outsider, Dan, what have you? Obviously, you saw. I would, as I said to you a lot of times, well, that player hasn't been like that for the other few games. You know, a few from Ed Palmer maybe, and a few performances and that. They've actually been a lot better, trust me. But what did you make of that game actually from a Torquay point of view and North Torquay start in general?
I think I would. Wow, you can't question it, can you? Right, one defeat, and that was against Farnborough,
Mm.
who were a bit buoyed on at the start of the season. And you're going to get that kind of performance, I think, when you play 2 games in 3 days. You make so many changes. Some of them work, some of them don't. But I think if I wouldn't say they played absolutely poorly. They just weren't on their game, Torquay, on
Things
Monday,
didn't work,
but they
yeah.
still won.
Yeah.
And I think the Cheshire back line was getting obviously a bit tired near the end. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm very impressed. I think obviously I've only seen the one game of Torquay, but seen plenty of the highlights in it. I know they obviously picked up a massive win away at Bath, and obviously they beat Dorking. Um, I think Musa is a powerhouse in that midfield. I mean,
Yeah.
no one gets near him when he's running with that ball.
Yeah.
And Dreyer at the back has been brilliant. I've always been a big fan of Falston. I don't think we discussed it before, didn't we? I don't think James Hayman had the best game in goal.
No, but he has actually played
No.
the start. Yeah, he did have a bit of a
Yeah,
dodgy game.
but I know
Yeah.
that he has been playing well. Yeah, I think Torquay will probably be higher than what expected. I think the way they're
Mm.
playing, and you got to be honest, they probably haven't even got into gear yet.
Yeah, no, there's still a long way to go. I mean, we'll try and get through mentioning each team if we just look at the sixth and seventh at the moment. Dorking and Eastbourne. I mean, Dorking, a lot of injuries creeping in. I caught the tail end of Mark White's interview for a bunch of amateurs, and down to 13 sort of players. He was not very angry.
Mm.
He's basically saying the words, I can't do it again without the expletive of last season. I mean, one way you could look at it is unlucky. The other way is, well, there are some injury prone players you're re-signing. I mean, and they could another day they win that game, but Torquay they won. Still a decent start for them, though, isn't it?
I think it's always the case of this stage of the season, especially after getting relegated. I don't want to say it breeds a culture of constantly losing, but if you've been relegated, you've obviously been one of the worst four teams in the division above for last season. So the mindset has to change a little bit. And for these early stages, for Boreham Wood and Dorking, okay, the pressure's going to be on them to perform well. But realistically, for these clubs, if they're within the playoffs by Christmas, then they can go into January, see what players are
The
available they can
momentum's
bring in
changed, hasn't
January.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then the second half of the season, you can really put your foot down and really because as we saw with a little bit with Torquay at the minute, I think saw someone on Twitter saying they're still learning each other's names and they're winning games.
yeah,
I think there may be a little bit of that for Dorking, a little bit of that for Boreham Wood because they've had to make some of the changes. I think Boreham Wood more than
yeah,
Dorking
yeah.
purely because Boreham would have had a change of management and a change of style from what they were used to under Luke Garrard. So for Dorking, for Boreham Wood to be sat in the playoffs after 5 games is fantastic for them, and they'll be looking to stay jostling within those positions. Then Christmas, hoping that the gap is not too big at the top of the table, but then this is the National League South. You could be top of the Christmas and then you finish mid-table because of you just couldn't keep that momentum going.
Eastbourne, obviously, full time we spoke about are they going to adapt? It was a pretty well near disastrous season last year. Darren, I mean, we thought they'd do a bit better, but that's a really solid start, isn't it? 10
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, all right, their wins have been, by the odd goal. But they've won three of their first five. They've been performing well. Funnily enough, I watched the game earlier of the Weymouth away, and yeah, created plenty of opportunities. And Bamba's now back from his spell on the sidelines for the first three games.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, do like Eastbourne. They're very solid at the back. Like we said, I think they'll be a lot stronger than last year. It'd be interesting to see because I think the teams that they've played so far, I think Farnborough, Aveley, Weymouth. It'd be interesting to see, when them games start coming in against the likes of Dorking, Torquay, and teams like that. How will they fare? But yeah, I'm very impressed with Eastbourne. I think they've got a good mix of quality in that side, and I think they'll do very well.
Two other teams that have started maybe better than someone expects was Tunbridge and Western-super-Mare. Very solid starts them as well. What have you made of their starts?
Yeah, it's funny because I saw Chesham play Western-super-Mare on a Tuesday night, and I'll be honest, I wasn't most impressed by Western-super-Mare, but they did the job on a Tuesday night, and that job was frustrate the home team, take your chances when you got them. They got two penalties, of course. Luke Coulson, who was a star player at Dartford last season, is obviously National League South quality, and any club would want to have him if he became available. So he stepped up and scored those two penalties in another one of those games where Cheshire deserved more than what they got out of it. And really, that seems to have kicked them on from that performance. And you look at that 2-0 win over Chelmsford and 1-0 win over Maidstone, those will breed confidence within that Western squad. And with those two clean sheets as well for Will Buse, which will, again, not only does it breed confidence in the front line, it breeds confidence in the back line that they went to and they beat Maidstone and Chelmsford, two teams who we were thinking are going to be a lot higher than they are at the moment.
You take into consideration as well on that first day of the season, 3-0 up to Worthing, and they lose 4-3. Then they go to
Mm.
Enfield and lose 1-0. To come back from that and win three games against two of arguably the strongest sides in the league, fair play. I thought Western would have a good season, and I think they're showing their quality is coming through a little bit now.
We did forget to go into detail with Tonbridge Angels, but what a great start they've had. Just outside the playoffs after 5 games, you're looking very solid, as Darren was saying at the start of the episode, and as Darren said in the preview episode, a few years he's put them to be dark horses. It's just a year that Tonbridge Angels actually a really well-run football club and an underdog really actually make an impact near the top of the league, but we'll see. Great start. It's someone who's had an interesting start. Maybe a little bit, you could say, victim very successful 5 games in, should be saying something like that. But Farnborough, obviously, won the first 3, and then they've lost the last 2. What do you make of that start, Darren?
I think they'll return to form at some point. I know Spencer Day hasn't been very impressed with their last 2 appearances on the pitch, and obviously the drubbing of 4-1 to Welling, they kind of heads were down, and it went into the Tonbridge game when they lost at home. But you could probably say they weren't even at their best on the 3 games that they won. But I think when you look at the quality they've got, they've obviously brought back Jonathan Page into the club as well. We get back to fitness, and I still believe they'll be around the playoffs. Farnborough, I think they'll have a few results like they've had there in the last couple of weeks where you take the eye off the ball for 5 minutes. There's so many good sides in this league. They just need to get that run back together again. But Day's very demanding of his squad. And he's got a few niggles and knocks in that squad, and I think it will take a little bit of time to get that full consistency back, but I still think they'll be up there.
Rounding off the top half of 5 games, bear in mind one of these has a game in hand as well. Salisbury, as we've said, but some of their best players, very solid start. They'll be very happy. Always good when you get promoted. You've got a good solid 8 points or so from 5.
Yeah.
And Welling, they've got a game in hand as well. They've made a good start, haven't they, Harry?
Yeah, they have, and Rod Stringer, who we spoke about in the last episode, had a fantastic end of last season. And if you put a manager of the half season, I think he would be a strong contender for it last season. He's obviously kept that feature going within Welling, and I think they'll be looking for a top half finish, looking for the playoffs, because last few seasons they've not been there or thereabouts from where they probably want to have been. And you said that they've picked up the results at the minute. They've got the 2 wins, both one against Farnborough, who just spoken about, one against Averley, who I'm sure we're going to talk about in a little bit, who haven't had the best of start of the season. Their only defeats come to Bathside, who again we predict to be up and there and thereabouts come the end of the season. So they've had a decent start to this campaign, and I think they can only build on more, because as we know, Reece Lovett as a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
For watching at Torquay, he's come in and Welling fans are raving about him.
Really happy that for him personally, I was really happy he's just settled in the number 1 spot and he's just getting that game.
Yeah.
That's just what his career needed. If I had £5 for every time I said that over the last 2 years, but I'll be quite rich by now. Going into the bottom half, but by no means a bad thing. 13th place, Hornchurch. Again, we talk about teams coming into the league and how we thought actually a lot of teams that came up, we thought we'd do all right, and they've shown us down, haven't they? 7 points, very solid start from the first 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Touched on for Salisbury, when you go up to the new leagues, you want as many points straight away on the board as possible. I mean, they've got a very experienced squad, players like Sean Scannell in that squad. And yeah, I think they'll be very tough to beat. I think they'll be around that position most of the season, if I'm honest, mid-table. But I think you take that if you've just got promoted. Quite impressed with Hornchurch so far. I look forward to actually going to see them in a couple of weeks. So
Harry, Bath, as we talked about them, injuries been a big problem. Still not a disastrous start, of course. 7 points from 5. They've shown their promise. I thought they were not far off Torquay in the game. I thought it was just Torquay managed the first half quite well. And Bath, they did push, but just not quite got that quality to unlock Torquay in that game. That's my impression of them. But still, I expect them to still be top half playoffs as the season goes on. What's your thoughts on them so far?
Yeah, I think from the patterns of games I've seen so far this season, if you've had the better of the first half, you tend to be the better team in the games so far this season. Torquay were probably thrown that a little bit out the window, scoring that last minute winner against Chesham, but I think you would argue that Chesham were the better side on the day. But again, with Bath, as you said, they've had a tough start in the sense of numbers wise this season. They've not had the squad that Jerry Gill would have been wanting whatsoever. So at the minute, to be sat in the middle of that table, they've got 2 wins. They won their last game against Hampton Richmond. They've got the win against a Welling side who've been tough defensively to break down as well. So I think Jerry Gill will be, in the circumstances, be very happy with the start of the season.
I agree. I think obviously losing 3 players wise as well. It might be a bit of a transitional season for Bath more than we thought, especially with the injuries. But still, I think even though where they want to aim, I don't think that's a bad start for them at all. So we're going into from 15th, and these are teams, some are doing all right and some haven't quite got their sort of magic going yet. Other teams just seem to be struggling. But Chippenham, still not too bad. Darren, 15th place, 5.5 games. Torquay played them on Tuesday. What do you reckon?
Yeah, we said a few weeks ago, I think Chippenham are always solid aside, and Gary Horgan does a very good job with what he's got there. But we said we'd struggled to score goals, and I haven't seen anything in the first 5 games that would make me change my mind with that. Another side that lost their first 2, and they've come back and 3 clean sheets in a row. That's always gives you half a chance for a point, doesn't it? So, but no, and the last 2 games of 0-0, I think the same as I can't remember who we mentioned just now, but Mason and Chelmsford. 2 games which they're probably going into expecting to lose, and they come out of it with 2 draws. So yeah, they're a solid outfit, Chippenham. Think they'll have enough just to survive, but you do worry about goals in that side.
Now, 16th place, obviously we did cover quite a bit earlier. Anything to add to Maidstone start, really? Just a lack of goals at the moment, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, just as Darren alluded to earlier, the only 2 goal scorers are defenders, Timmy Awika and Reece Greenwich. So obviously, there seems to be the issue at top. I know some of the fans seem to be a little bit frustrated with their start of the season. I think there is the pressure on them because they did so well in the FA Cup last season, and if you've gone as far as they did in the FA Cup, everyone goes, "Well, surely you not want enough money from prize money and whatnot to go and go
Doesn't
for."
always work like that, does it? No.
No, but welcome to National League South football. You could
Yeah.
pump in a lot of money, but it only keeps you on the ground. There was a podcast the other day I was listening to. I think it may have been Guys Over yesterday saying that would you take £10,000 or 10 volunteers? And I think a lot of these clubs
It
go, yeah,
wasn't
we'll take
ours, but
10
yeah,
vol.
no, it
It
is.
was
It is
it was
other
heard it
reviews. Yeah,
somewhere. I
yeah.
apologize to who said it, but yeah, if you put £10,000 into a club or 10 volunteers, they go, yeah, no, we'll take the volunteers because that
Very
helps
true. Whoever
the
said it,
club.
very truthful. Because I read there was a bit of a Alakobi's had a slight clash with fans, didn't he? Then he had to kind of
Mm.
say no, so I just got a bit over emotional, which is fine. It happened. Fair play. I think he's a good bloke. Darren, what do you reckon? Do you reckon they'll do a bit more business on the transfer side, or do you reckon it will just come good?
I don't know. You'd probably have to argue if they carry on not scoring, he probably will have to do something because the
Yeah,
expectations is they should be up there. They've got players like John Benton on the bench and Fonkau, and yeah, they've just got too much quality attacking to not to continue this non-scoring streak. I think they'll come. It's one of them sides, aren't they, that they'll turn up some week and they'll smash someone 5-0 and they're off and running.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think there might be a little bit of movement in the transfer market, but I think he's just got to get that squad settled.
going into sort of 17th place, Hampton, Richmond. Do
Yeah.
you know what? After everything what's gone off the
Mm.
pitch, and I remember the obvious examples Crawley last season when everyone went, oh, they're 24th because of been signing players from below and all that. And right, they're not quite what Crawley did and get promoted, but 5 points, 5 games, not too bad, Harry, really, is it?
No, as you said, exactly. I think we all of us sort of went, it's going to be Southampton. They may not be picking up the points that they want to be picking up this season um, to stay up. But as Darren alluded to, Kurd in goals being one of his highlighted players from the first few games. You look at it, they've only conceded 5 goals in these opening 5 games for a team. Again, the goals aren't coming from anywhere, but they've picked up a win. They've picked up 2 draws in their opening 5 games, and for a side which a lot of people had their concerns about beginning of the season to be sat 17th, to be sat 2 points clear of the drop zone already. They'll see it as a good start and something to build upon going forward. And I think Alan Julian's got to make them a tough side to beat if they're going to do well this season with the circumstances that they're in.
Hampton fans might disagree with me, but I think they've had a brilliant start to the season, and I think that's the kind of start Alan Julian would have wanted. They haven't been blown away by anyone. Yes, they lost 3-1 home to Hornchurch on the opening day, but everyone else they've been in the game in every game. I watched their game away at Chelmsford and the amount of chances they created. Babajide and Roberts up front, Archie Taylor was brilliant, and they created a hell of a lot of opportunities. They could have easily scored 4 or 5 that evening. But yeah, you do like Harry said, some of the goals you wonder, who's going to spread them around. Obviously, James Roberts has scored plenty of goals at this level before, but
Mm.
yeah, I think they can be very chuffed with their start to the season.
Worthing, we were a bit worried. It was still very early days and they had played a game less.
Hmm.
When you lose your striker of that many goals and a bit of a second season bounce, it hasn't been a thrilling start for them, has it, Harry? 5 points in 4 games.
No, I think they're maybe one of those sides if they pick up a 5-0 when they get rolling again.
Yeah.
I said you lose some big players during that window, but I still got Danny Cashman, who will, when we talk about predictions, I did predict him to score a brace in the opening day of the season. He did exactly that. The only thing I did get right, you look at where Worthing were last season, did really well, losing some big players. It's going to be a slow start to the season. But as you said, they've only played 4 games and everybody else has played 5, which is more telling this time of the season than it will be in a few months' time. But you kind of go, they beat Western. They had a fantastic start to the season, going 3-0 down to then going to win 4-3, but they haven't picked it up. That defeat to Truro is massive, but then again, it's a case of Bank Holiday Monday away at Truro, probably not the nicest
They,
mix
they did it a lot
to
last
have.
season, though, didn't they? They got
Mm.
stuffed so many times last season. I think their first away defeats last year, they lost by 4 goals, and it seems to be it's going that way again. So
That is an interesting. They need to sort that out if they're really sick about obviously pushing forward. Okay,
Mm.
going into like 19th and 20th position. So we spoke about Chesham earlier. Do you say it's a bit of a not a false position, but I think look, they've been good. I think they've still been all right. I was impressed by them for what they were needs against Darren against Torquay, didn't they?
Yes, yeah, a lot to admire in there, and obviously Mitchell Weiss and people like that weren't even starting against Torquay. Obviously,
No.
from bit of rotation from Saturday. But yeah, very impressed, and obviously it's going to get a lot harder when you go down to 10 men and you've got to play a full time pretty much outfit for 45 minutes with 10 men. But they still look dangerous even with 10 men. They went
Yeah.
2-1 up with 10 men,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was very impressed. Obviously, I haven't seen their other games, but yeah, I mean they haven't been blown away by anyone, have they? Like Harry
No.
No,
spoke
I think
about
this
before.
this is what I was going to say is the games that they've lost, they've lost it by a goal. That was lost a goal against Bournemouth, where some fans were saying arguably they were good enough for a point. Eastbourne, where they drew 1-1, a lot of fans are saying, nah, I think they were good enough for 3 points. I think you could argue on Monday that they were good enough for 3 points against Torquay. The big thing they had there is obviously the Jack Corley red card, which is probably one of the best red
Great
cards I've ever
save,
seen. It was a
What's
great
brilliant
it?
save.
save. What a save!
We know who the outfield goalkeeper is in the Cheshire squad from that, but. They lost Jack Corley, who was their long throw specialist throughout the game, which the first goal came from. Then they took Jack Connors off at half time to bring on Connor Stevens into the side
He was
during
having a good
that. And
game,
again,
wasn't he?
Connors was playing all the free kicks into dangerous areas in the
Yeah,
box. They lost their two big set piece threats and still gave Torquay a good old run for their money. And you could just I was talking to some of the guys at the club afterwards. You could just tell the disappointment in their face that they were the better team on Monday and they didn't get anything out of it. And you hope it's not going to be the story of Chesham season, but it sort of feels like it is at the minute. And the 4 points they've got, I don't think replicate anything of their performances so far.
If they keep that level of performance, you see this, talk about those teams like
Mm.
Hornchurch. Yeah, right. Cheshire haven't quite got those points, but I think they should be okay if they turn those points into wins. One thing I forgot to mention on the Talkie Talk episode about the Cheshire and Torquay game, right? And it's interesting what you do from this point of view. 2-2 corner, right? Cheshire had, and they played it short rather than their own corner at 2-2, 3 or 4 minutes to go, and they played it short. I couldn't believe that. Fair enough, you might want to leave a couple of players back, and you want the points good. That was mental to me to do that
I, th- I, th-
2-2.
I think a little bit for Chesham is when we looked at the team sheet initially, where they made 7 changes going into a
Mm.
game against arguably Torquay, who arguably the biggest club in the league. You're going, are they
Of
seeing this
course,
as a
I
free
respect
hit?
that.
Are they
But they could
seeing
have won
this
that
as
game.
a
We were
free hit?
vulnerable. I feel like from
Yeah,
set piece, I was scared
they
when
could
they
have.
got that corner. Of
Yeah, I can see that point, but I think on the other side for Chesham is we'll take points where we can get them
course, yeah, of
in these
course,
sort
yeah.
of stages, and to get a point against Torquay for them would just boost their confidence and everything. I think the
No, I
performance
totally
itself
understand that,
should do, but I think in that position they probably went. If you offered us a point at 12 o'clock today, would we have taken it?
yeah. Yeah, of
Yes.
course. Yeah. No, I
We're
understand.
coming to the point where at the end of this game we could go and win it, but let's try and get the point. But unfortunately for them, it didn't happen.
And now into 20th place, a team that had a winless start. One of only 4 teams, and a team that I had quite high expectations for. I know they've lost a few players. Chelmsford, Darren, not a good start for them so far, is it?
No, and while I thought they'd be a lot further down than last year, I kind of you got to look at them and fear for them a little bit. It hasn't really gelled so far, and yes, like we've always alluded to, we are only 5 games in, but for no win, no clean sheet for a side that thrives off clean sheets. Um, yeah, I've seen a couple of their games, and there's not too much threat for the opposition at the moment. They've not won at home. 3 draws, 1-1 in games that you'd probably expect them to win. Hampton, Tonbridge, and Chippenham. Yeah, they'll pick up wins. Of course they will. They're a good side at this level with some really good players. But I do fear for them that I don't think they're going to be near the playoffs. With the way I've seen it
Mm.
so far.
No, you're right. Anything to add, Harry?
Yeah, well, it's a bit hard to say anything without seeing them yet this
Yeah.
season. But you looked at the recruitment. Jake Hardy spoke about if you can get him fit, he'll score the goals at this level. We know very much well what Calvin Clara is like as a tricky winger as a player, but it just doesn't seem that the pieces are falling together. But again, we alluded to 5 games into
Five
this
games
season.
in.
Everyone's still learning each other. If you took a screenshot of the league table now, I can guarantee you it will not look like this come March, April time, it will look
Sorry, Slough.
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't
sorry,
rotate
Slough.
second at the moment.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think
no,
Torquay
I bet
fans
you will. I
would.
bet you would.
the old example, Torquay team that got promoted in 2008, 2009, they had 5 points from 6 games and they won the playoffs. So, it happens, but in the blue square bet in those days. But yeah, into the bottom four, we'll still call it the bottom four, the relegation zone, but it's 5 games in. And for Town, what, when I saw them, I was really impressed with their work rate, and it was always going to be a case of, can they turn that? One thing's looking plucky against a team like us. I don't mean some big headed, but full-time
Mm.
team. Another thing is how you can do it in games that you need to, if that makes sense. Obviously, they've conceded quite a bit, haven't they, Darren? Was that a bit of a concern?
Yeah, of course, it's always concerning. And 6-1 losing at home. I think they came across a very ruthless Slough when they
Mm.
played them, and they followed that up with losing, just conceding 3 at Truro. I think they've got some players still finding their feet at this level. Obviously, new players are bedding in. Out of the 4 promoted sides, they've obviously started the worst. Um, Yeah, you look at the squad at the moment. I mean, Felipe's, he's got his name on the score sheet. So, we spoke about him in our preview show, and
Mm.
if they can get him, double figures, then that, he's had a good season. But yeah, it's a bit of a worrying start for them. But we'll see where they are in another 5 games. I think if they're still sitting there in the bottom 4 after 10 games, I think it will be a pretty long season.
It's a little bit harder when you've obviously just come up and you don't want to compare yourself to someone like Salisbury, Hornchurch, or Chesham at this stage of the season, even though you kind of feel that all that's our sort of benchmark. But at least they've managed to go and pick up a win. And
Mm.
the Slough game, if you look at the start of the season that Slough have had, you can maybe push it away a little bit, going, well, let's face it, we faced the informed team in the league, and they've gone and stuck 6 past us. So maybe at the end of the season, we'll look at that kind of going, that's not a fixture we needed to worry about so much. But
Mm.
going forward with the upcoming fixtures, they'll look at Chippenham. I know it's an away day for them, but look at Chippenham on Saturday and go, we need to get at least a point out of this game to try and push ourselves away from the bottom. But when you look at it, only one of the promoted teams are in the bottom 4 at the minute. You'd say it's been a good start for the new boys.
I
No,
think
I
you
totally
alluded
agree.
to it in the preview show when we spoke about the predictions, Sam, and said, you get some freak results at the start of the season. I think it was 3 games in last year. Western-super-Mare scored 6 at Bath, and Bath didn't phase them. They still finished in the playoffs. So
Mm.
there's a long way to go.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more inconsistency. Some teams just will turn up completely on it in this league. And you're like, why can't you do that every week? But
Yeah, it's good
it's
for momentum
interesting.
though.
It is good for momentum, yeah. No. So going into the next few teams, we're going to have to put you in the disappointing start bracket, I'm afraid,
Mm.
for the other 3. So we've had a great account on Twitter, National League South Player Hub, who writes some great stuff. Follow that account. He basically, I'm just going to put a little bit of an audio segment in now, what he's thought of it.
Sort of in the most simple way, it has been a disappointing start to the season. But for me, I don't think it's anywhere as bad as some are suggesting. So sort of for me, the first 3 games against Maidstone, Worthing and Hornchurch were actually quite positive performances. And across all 3 of those games on the day, we were probably the better team, but we just haven't taken our chances at the moment. Then sort of going into bank holiday, first game up against Chesham, and just frankly put it, we were poor against Chesham. But also against Chesham, we picked up a lot of injuries in the defensive department. So we had Joe Partington, club captain, go off injured, Safari Moore go off injured. And to be honest, going into that Dorking game, I generally thought we were going to lose 5 or 6-0, but we were fantastic against them. We showed so much passion. Like compared to the Worthing game, we looked aggressive. We were putting in tackles. We were moving the ball around quickly. But I think now we need to bring in some loan players or signings because, well, I think at the moment we've got 12 first-team players available. So yeah, I think we'll turn it around, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think Farnborough on Saturday is going to be a tough game. Then, Tonbridge on Tuesday, then Western. So personally, I'd like to just get 4 or 5 points from the next 3.
Not a good start. We had them almost as dark
Ooh.
horses, didn't we, Harry? And 1 point from 5 games.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a tricky start for Dave Noble coming back. Obviously, he went to Wilston, it didn't work out there, and you kind of go, has that affected him in some sort of way? Obviously, he's come back to St Albans, which is basically home from home for him, and it just doesn't hasn't seemed to have clicked yet. But again, it's 5 games in, the players still getting used to each other. I think for them, losing to Chesham's going to probably hurt them the most. To go, it's a local rival in some respects. It's also a team who've just got promoted. That'll be one of their early target games to go and pick up 3 points, and they didn't pick up those 3 points. And it's how they react from that is where St Albans' season will go. If they can react well from it, then they can go up further. Okay, going to Dorking after playing Chesham's probably not the ideal fixture you want so soon, but you've got to look forward. Farnborough, the next game, who've won their opening 3, they've lost their last 2. They kind of hope they're going, okay, they're on a bit of the downward trajectory, and so are we. Here's the sort of game where we can bounce off that and move up the table again.
Yeah, I mean, they've only lost by the odd goal, haven't they? Sorry, by 1 goal in the 4 defeats that they've had. They're just waiting for that thing to click, and I think they will eventually. I think he's still trying to work out what to do with Jeffers and Charles. Jeffers hasn't started hardly any of their games. I think he started the last one, I believe, just one start for him, and he's their goal threat, isn't he? But so's Charles, and I'm quite really disappointed because I expected really big things from St Albans this year. They're putting a fight for it in every game, but they need to start picking up some wins if they want to finish in the top parts of the league, I think.
Aveley, Torquay United's next opponents on Saturday. We were a little bit worried. Obviously, that first season, they've lost a few players as well. Again, 5 games in, but still, 1 point from 5 games is a little bit worrying, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, it is, and you've also got to look at the squad again. It's you can put them in the same bracket as Worthing. Look at who they've lost more than who they've gained. Losing either Lucy, going to Sutton, sort of one of the key ones as well. So again, it's sort of the squad is still trying to get to know each other a little bit. Okay, they've got Charlie Hughes, they've still got Razak Coleman de Graft up top. Within that side to go and to keep that sort of consistency, but they went to Hemel, went down to 9 men in that game. That doesn't help if you've got a tighter squad, which National League South clubs tend to have. And then obviously you've got a tricky test against a Torquay United side who are in form. But as we know, this is the National League South. Aveley will probably go win 2-0 on Saturday. Who knows?
Darren, what have you thought about Aveley's start?
Yeah, it'd be difficult, isn't it? 3 home games as well in that. They just picked up that 1 point. When you look at their side last season that started, their attack would have included people like Odalusi, Matt Rush, and John Benton. And it's kind of a little bit far away from that quality in there at the moment. And yeah, I think Danny Scopes will probably get a little bit more of a tune out of them in the next few weeks. But and obviously they lost one of their leaders in Garrett Kelly, who's obviously left the club. So yeah, it's just, we said second season syndrome does affect a lot of teams, and Aveley are certainly going through that. And looking at it from the sides that have started really well, that have got points on the board, your Western-super-Mares, your Salisbury's, Aveley need to start picking up some points soon, I think.
Rooted at the bottom, and the win on Saturday changes everything, I might point out. A team that, quite local to Torquay, a great away. They got a play on Boxing Day, got a bit of a soft spot, especially for what their chairman did for us when we went to administration. You predicted on your own video they would come bottom. Darren, obviously, I know 5 games in, and we feared for them on this, but no points from 5 games for Weymouth is a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, they haven't scored in 4, and we worried where the goals would come from. We worried about that attack. I think the fans are already on Molesley already.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. They look like a side that were going to kind of try and reach back into the top ends of this league at the beginning of last year under Wilkinson. But yeah, you'd worry for their goals, and I don't see anything changing with the current way things are with Weymouth at the moment, which is a shame to say because, like you say, they are a good side. They're a good club. But yeah, I mean, where's the goals coming from?
I agree. Anything to add, Harry?
Yeah, as you said, just a tough start. And again, I hate to sound like I'm repeating what Darren's saying here, but the goals are the worry. Scored 2 goals in the opening day of the season, lost it 3-2, and haven't scored a goal since. And that sound like Mark White, goals win football games, and that's a simple thing. And for Weymouth, if they're not getting a tune out of Torre or Linton, or I think Josh McCoy is back or back training again.
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, obviously for him, he's been out for a long time, so obviously for him to get back into the stride of things
Good
as
ship's
well.
just come back as well, hasn't he? But
Yeah, and Goodchip's one of those players who, for so many years over the years, you look at him scoring 15 plus goals here, 20 plus goals here, and you think, oh, it's going to come for him, and it just hasn't seemed to have hit for them. You hope the tide will turn on them soon at the minute, but with the way the results are going at the minute, you worry for them that the tide may not be turning anytime soon.
Billy Terrell's a jinx.
Yeah, yeah, as with sadly, the keeper bit is looking that way. So, obviously, we've had quite a lot of football already. We had that busy bank holiday, but looking forward, we won't go through every prediction because we've been doing it in our own little league, which has been interesting. Now he's on top of that. It's very tight. And if anyone's watching and want to predict the games, you go ahead, put it in the comments. But got a Saturday, Tuesday. I mean, I'll read out the fixtures, and then you can sort of talk about the ones that stand out to you. I mean, instantly for me, Bournemouth versus Maidstone. I mean, that's an interesting game on
Mm,
Saturday, isn't it?
It's tough for Maidstone, isn't it? Because they're going to need to win and they need to score goals, and they're probably going to the toughest place in the league.
yeah.
For me. But if they won 1-0, you wouldn't be shocked. But I take away, Boreham Wood's defeat at Salisbury. I don't think they'll lose many this year. I think Boreham Wood looks so strong, and I would never go against them winning at home.
I agree. Next two games, Chippenham and Enfield. Interesting game for both those teams to try and get points on the board. And then Eastbourne, Dorking, more at the top, Harry, in those two games. Kind of got a bit,
Yeah,
something on that,
as
isn't there?
you said, Eastbourne have surprised us with their start to the season, and then Dorking, obviously, we know what they're like. We know Mark White wants his teams to be scoring goals, but then the injuries are coming in. They're going to another artificial surface there. We know artificial surfaces aren't kind on players who do
Yeah.
pick up injuries. So if Dorking can get the win from that, they'll be very pleased with that result, and they'll be able to take points off another team which is around them at the moment.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Farnborough and St Albans, as we're talking about, St Albans really need to start picking up points. And Hampton versus Worthing again. Hampton, we were a bit worried about at the start, but
Mm.
Worthing, they need to start winning there, don't they, Darren?
Yeah, and you wouldn't be surprised if that was 5-0 to Worthing in that game.
Mm.
But Hampton have started very well, and defensively they look pretty solid. So I think it's a tough trip for Worthing. And we spoke about it in our preview show again, the fact that they haven't had any home matches yet, and I believe from a couple of things that I saw online that could be delayed even further in terms of when they get that first home game in. So traveling all the time away from home, especially when you're part-time, can take its toll a little bit. And I think they might come into a bit of difficulty at Hampton. The stands that have having some groundwork on, I believe, without knowing 100%, I think it's the stand that they're making some maintenance on, and I think it's been delayed a little bit, whether due to the construction site. So
Can't be
um,
helping them, can it?
no, it can't. And if we looked at Hampton last year, they started the first 8 or 9 games away from home and rarely won many. And it's hard enough when you're a new manager trying to settle your squad down, not having
Mm.
home support, which is pretty decent. Worthing, they get a good crowd
Yeah.
that they get behind the team, and not and traveling away all the time. It's difficult.
Yeah, and another few interesting games. Hemel and Bath. Hemel, we can't skip over him, but what a start they've had. Third place, Harry, and really impressive versus the Bath team with struggles, but that's a really interesting one. And then Slough versus Weymouth. What do you make
Mhm.
of those two games, Harry?
Um, Knowing the National League South, Weymouth will beat Slough um, on Saturday. That I might go for my mad prediction of the week. Might be that one.
Yeah,
But
go
yeah,
on.
Hemel and Bath. You look at the Hemel starts of the season. They'll be fantastic if they can pick up a scalp against Bath. They'll be more than pleased with that one as a home tie as well for them. So they'll be expecting to go and collect those 3 points to them and keep up with Torquay and Slough with the start that both of them have made.
The Tees, Tonbridge and Salisbury, both have had really good starts, in my opinion. And then Torquay versus Aveley, of course. What do you make of those two games, Harry?
Yeah, Tunbridge Salisbury should be interesting. Salisbury, of course, the promoted sides who've done the best out of the four, which has gone up, which has gone against the grain of what we all thought. We thought Salisbury might be the one who would struggle the most, but they've had the better start to the season. You think Tunbridge may just go and get something out of that one, with the way they've been defending as well. Maybe another clean sheet at home. Then we look at Torquay, the positivity around the club, the vibe is what's the key words which has been used at the minute to describe how things are going on. It seems so positive, and when you're having 3,000 at home in this league, it's such a we always speak about the 12th man, but the 12th man is massive.
Yeah.
In this situation, if Torquay can keep up the 3,000 attendance each week, of course, midweek's going to be a little bit harder because it's midweek. But on your Saturdays, you come against Daveley side who will want to have a better start. They want to be picking up the points soon, and it's sort of a case of whilst Daveley are down wounded a little bit, Torquay need to go and take advantage if they're going to meet the ambitions that they want to have this season.
I agree. And then the final three, Darren. So you've got a Truro team with an excellent start versus a Chelmsford team, as we discussed, struggling. Pressure on Chelmsford to get a result there. And you've got a Welling versus Chesham, and then a Western-super-Mare Hornchurch. Anything stand out from those three games?
Truro and Chelmsford was quite fascinating, but the win, over Worthing, the 5-0 win over Worthing is what a confident booster that must be. The players are well on form, and it's a very hard place for Chelmsford to go. A long way down to Truro, looking for that first win. Yeah, I could see a draw in it, but I wouldn't want to be travelling to Truro right now if I'm not on form. And then I think Welling Chesham's an interesting one as well. Welling are solid. They don't concede many under Stringer, and I'll be interested to see if they can continue the form that they've been showing, if they can climb that league anymore, or are they just going to be a mid-table side because they've had the start, which gives the potential that they can do a bit more this season.
No, we are. Well, thank you for joining me, you two. Absolutely brilliant. As usual, we're going to do this sort of roundup show every few weeks, I think. We're still going to ease it in at the thing because, our conversation will get very similar if we're just going for a league every time. But we'll work on the format. Anything to suggest, that'd be great. But we'll see probably in a few weeks. In the meantime, I've got a few sort of Southern football-based interviews sorted. So enjoy them from this part of Talkie Talk. And yes, if anyone wants to get involved, as I always say every week, comments and all that, please do. So thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you in a few weeks.